Greetings, fellow Earthling. Welcome to a podcast with me, Dave, and another thing, and Travis. We're going to be talking about the Great Reset, World War III, the Fourth Turning, and what is next for the U.S. of A. Hashtag Red Pill.
Do you really think the CIA and all the other three-letter agencies and powers that be throughout the rest of the world, do you really think that they honestly don't have anything bigger than nuclear weapons that haven't been quietly developing? I mean, the Manhattan Project, nobody knew entirely what they were working on because it was so compartmentalized. And now you get us to where we are now. Granted, everyone's looking at one thing while completely possibly missing something else. We just came up with Space Force 2017.
Yeah, and that brings to mind the mother of all bombs, a conventional bomb that is horrific in size.
Yeah, it's pretty much just one giant bomb of fire. How far did they say that bomb stand? Like, what? I think it was 2-3 miles.
Yeah, so you could take out the whole downtown of any city, really, most cities.
Yeah, it's set on fire permanently. Well, not permanently, but you know what I mean. It's one big giant fireball.
Let's run through these messages, hear what the people have to say, and then come back to it.
Yes, sir.
Hey, what's going on, y'all? It's Vladimir farting all up in the motherfucking building. How y'all doing?
All right. Always good to have some levity.
Got both the joke and the fact for you. My father's generation had Wonder Woman. My generation wonders if it is a woman.
Yeah. That would explain why they have they're paying, or they feel like they got to pay Ukraine for their oil. Right? Shut our oil down. Interesting.
Yeah, we had the ability for this to be a non-issue for us, but then we just simply go and what? You look at what we did. We threw the need to be in war into Russia's hands. We were a net exporter before everything changed over. And now you look at when that could have been a non-issue for us, we can be like, yeah, I don't care. But now we have to care because you look at it, it'll absolutely cripple our country. All this could be fixed if we just decided to, be fairly isolationist and just be like, we're going to focus on us. We do us. And I mean, if each country was like that, we'd be having less wars. I mean, evidently, you're still going to have conflict because, like I said, war is a game of resources. But you take the entire stinger, entire need for war completely out of it.
Right. But then, we wouldn't be orchestrating world geopolitics like a chess game.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I heard recently. Yeah, one of the things I heard recently is that we refuse to negotiate with Putin. He's been, he's come up with like 3 compromises, and we've nixed them all, and we refuse to speak with him on a diplomatic level because it seems that we want this conflict to happen, right?
Mm-hmm. And you look at
why.
Yeah, you look at 2016 with another famous crime family with the Clintons that have been wanting a war for a while. I mean, you think about times where someone does break through that wasn't supposed to, like Bernie Sanders trying to make his run. They did everything they could to shut that guy down because it wasn't his turn. And he was not in the in crowd.
Yeah. And then when they couldn't shut him down, they just the DNC just flat out stole the primary and gave it to Hillary.
Exactly. And then what we found out about
that's not me. Yeah, that's proven.
Yeah.
That the DNC conspired. Debbie Wasserman Schultz lost her position as the chair of the DNC because of that.
Yep. And of course, when you're in that in crowd, I'd still keep an eye out for her. When you're in that in crowd, it never seems to be that you fail down. You fail up on both sides of the aisle. As long as you are within an establishment, the Uniparty, you fail up. Don't worry. Look at Anthony Weiner.
You know what I heard?
He tweeted out pics of his dick.
how could he still be around? He's basically a disgusting like pedo.
Yeah, and he's still here. But
right. You know what
like
I heard
said,
is that Kamala Harris is going to run for president, and that Hillary is going to run as her vice.
where are you hearing that? I've not heard any rumors of that.
I heard that from Lee Camp, and he had some investigative journalist on. I'm not sure if it was Aaron Matei, but there are rumors that Hillary will run as VP. Why? Because we wouldn't have to elect her. She's just chosen, right?
Yep. Yep. Ultimately,
we don't
they
get
go
to
by
elect the VP. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Oh man, it's just so ultimately, I just want people to step back and think war is bad, period. War is bad. So if somebody's beating the drums for war, you got to pull back the lens and look at the bigger picture, look at the historical context, and look at who stands to gain what, right? Like in a basic murder, you look at, did the spouse have an insurance policy? First thing, who's going to make who stands to benefit, right?
Yep.
Man, we got a couple messages. Let's hit these real quick.
Yeah, buddy.
What's going on? You come too.
And Americans will be so stupid to vote that. Watch.
I believe you're right.
Now the chaos comes opportunity. That's what they're using.
Yeah,
Very
what he brings to mind right there is one of the and I heard this from I've stumbled down the rabbit hole, right? There's a ton of ex-CIA members. John Stockwell is the most prominent, but that have written books about the hideousness that they personally took part in. And basically they say the tenet of the CIA is create a crisis, then offer the solution, right? So the Mujahideen, we created the Mujahideen in Afghanistan to fight against Russia. Who was the Mujahideen? We recruited hardcore right-wing Islamists, Wahhabists from all over the Middle East. The CIA trained them, and then we armed them. That turned into the Taliban. Oh, what could go wrong? You know?
Yep. Meanwhile, you're just laying down cards. Yeah, go ahead.
But on a side note, the Taliban eradicated 90% of the opium fields in Afghanistan. Then our military comes in, boom, oh no, production's back up higher than ever.
Yep. And so I'm wondering what hell happened here if we decide like, oh, you know what? Look, things are getting too bad over in Ukraine. We better start raising up resistance fires and funding them. And I mean, what am I saying? We're already doing that. So I say, what are we waiting for? About 20 years until something else happens?
Yeah,
we're just changing
the major
lines.
one happens, but the little ones never stop, right? Because in between Iraq and now, well, Afghanistan invasion and now, we've destroyed Libya. There are now open slave markets in Libya, and people think, oh, Gaddafi bad guy because the idiot box told you to think that. Well, Gaddafi was trying to unite Africa, and he was moving toward the gold standard. He had already created a coin, the gold dinar, and he was only going to sell oil in that gold dinar. All of Africa is really, really resource rich. Now, that leads to the petrodollar. So after World War II, Saudi Arabia and the U.S. made an agreement called the petrodollar, where if you want to buy Saudi Arabian oil, you have to first exchange your currency into dollars, maybe at a loss because of the exchange rate, then you can buy oil.
And that leads us into a major prompt for the fourth turning. Because ultimately, I think the only reason why we have not gone in and started shooting ourselves is obviously, you know, about the Hunter Biden laptop, which New York Post released, and then now the New York Times has came out and said, yeah, actually, we knew that was right. And so now, what a coincidence that it's all happening over in Ukraine. So you have part of like, ooh, we really need to go in there because Russia and China both want to be getting off of the petrodollar, which ultimately 80% of our currency, all US dollars, I would say printed, but let's face it, it's all digital at this point for the most part. If you were to go in and say, like, hey, I want to cash this in money, you ain't getting it. But all of that, 80% of that is outside of the US. Everybody stops using the US dollar and that comes back. You thought the Great Depression was bad. You ain't seen nothing yet. That is a death blow. An absolute death blow.
Nailed it,
brother.
You just nailed it, brother.
Yep, and they're talking to Saudi Arabia about possibly switching over to the Chinese yuan. We forced Russia into the arms of China, and now you have obviously North Korea looking emboldened, wanting. North Korea doesn't. I mean, they're so broken. They really don't care about money at this point. They care about their ideology about reuniting the peninsula and putting it under their own rule. So they've become pretty much buddies with China. You have obviously Iran has never been fans of us, nor really pretty much anybody, wanting their nuclear deal. And obviously they have the big card to play of, hey, we got oil. And so, I mean, right now, the risk of petrodollar, I think, will ultimately be one of the things that forces our elites into a massive, massive war. And we really don't have anything to back it up because what was it? I think we started the process in 63, and I think it was 63 or 64, and officially went out on, I believe, 65 from gold standard.
Gold standard, right?
Yep.
So our money isn't tied to anything now. It's basically the only thing that props up the dollar is your belief in it.
Yep, and your need for oil, and so you go and say, hey, let's go and stop needing to use oil. Let's go and do green, which ultimately, I mean, we have to advance. We had, a lot of people believe that the Indians were something like over in the Disney cartoons, but they didn't have domesticated horses at that point. So then they go and they get introduced into horses. We already have horse-drawn carriages, and then you go and you continue on. After that, people get into early forms of the automobile. Now we're getting to things like the Tesla. Well, ultimately, we have to continue to evolve in our technology. So I am all about being able to change that, but we have to be able to have something to fall back onto, because once you remove that and they're pushing for stuff that, hey, we don't have the technology for, nor do we have some form of currency or anything to back ourselves into. So even if we did push ourselves off into a green standard at that point, we're left holding junk that nobody wants.
Right.
So
everybody's bank account is everybody's bank account's all of a sudden worth nothing.
Yep. And what a coincidence. Isn't our U.S. government working on Fed coin, I believe they're calling it?
Yeah, exactly. Because why? Because they can't let that blockchain technology be ruled by the people, because then they don't have overarching control over the financial system.
Yep. I'm pulling up the U.S. debt clock right now. Give me just 1 second. But
awesome. Hey, Sebastian, what's going on? Evil, what's going on? I'll get to your messages in just a sec. But the petrodollar brought me back to Iraq. So Iraq was going to move away from the gold, from the petrodollar, and they were only going to sell their oil in euros, right? So we had to stop that. That now Russia and China have made a merger where they're going to, trade in the yen and the ruble. So we don't like that. That takes the petrodollar out at the knees, right?
Yep.
We can't have that. Here, let's run down some of these messages while you look that up.
Yes, sir.
Like for 9/11, Donald Rumsfeld had basically declared war on our own government. You can look it up, because they were researching, trying to find out where those trillions of dollars that went missing in the defense budget. Oh, we don't seem to know where $3 trillion went. And then Nassar was supposed to be released the same time 9/11 happened. And then, another one.
Oh my God. Thank you for that point. I got to interject before I go to the next message because I'll forget. So yeah, Donald Rumsfeld, the day before 9/11, had released a press statement. You can see this on YouTube, where the Pentagon can't account for $2.3 trillion. Like what? And then the next day, the part of the Pentagon that was conducting that research, that audit, oh, that's where the quote unquote plane hit at the Pentagon. Um, then you look at building number 7, that housed all the records for the Enron investigation, huge energy scandal that implicated Dick Cheney siding with energy corporations over people, and on and on. Right, the Patriot Act. Right, so in this time of like we need to defend America, well, what is America all about? Apparently, it's about the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. Well, the Patriot Act gutted those things and allowed the government to kick in your door and take you away in the middle of the night and send you somewhere to a black site like Guantanamo, but without announcing it to anybody you know or your family. So all of a sudden, you're just gone. You are disappeared. All right, let me get through these 3 messages, and then
they're allowing Ukraine to be taken over. Otherwise, they would step in and defend like we do all the time. You know what I'm saying? We always are stepping in people's business, but this time we want to stay neutral. Come on, man. People don't see the through that shit. It's like, okay, now we're not going to help nobody. Well, that's because we're going to let it happen because it's in the fucking plan.
Sir.
Yeah, so Saddam, they went after him because of his petrodollar was gaining wealth. Gaddafi was another one. Anytime we see a leader of a regime being taken out, it's because usually their currency is gaining wealth on the Federal Reserve dollar bill every time.
Yep, and just a quick interjection there. Look what we did with Gaddafi and Saddam. We drugged their dead body through the street and had it on worldwide media. Saddam Hussein, or who the hell was that? Supposedly the head of ISIS or Al Qaeda, Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden. That guy is apparently world enemy number 1. Where's his body? Oh, we threw it overboard without taking a picture. There's no video. Come on, enemy number 1, and you don't film his dead body. But these 2 guys are drugged through the streets with the whole world to see. Give me a break.
Yep.
Coincidence that Hunter Biden used to work be on the board of directors of Burisma in Ukraine, right? Making $86,000 a month, I think it was. Conflict of interest while your dad's the vice president, ain't it? But yeah, that was swept under the rug. Then acting like it never happened. They need to expose that one for sure. That's treason and corruption, all wrapped up nice.
Yes, sir.
He also linked insider trading to 9/11, but they said they weren't terrorists, but they had beforehand knowledge. So there was insider trading being done at the time and before, and then coincidentally the levels of the trade towers that were hit were occupied by Marsh and McClellan, which were also another firm that was coincidentally investigating the missing trillions of dollars. You know what I'm saying? But
yes, sir. He's connecting the dots.
Osama bin Laden. Somebody said put a turban on him and he looks like Barack Obama.
Little levity and
take it away, Travis.
Yeah, I wanted to I know it's not a main point, but I still just wanted to point out we took him out, or quote unquote, we took him out on an election year. You would think that you would take pictures, you would take videos, you would bring the actual body back itself. But we get into Benghazi and we have photos, I believe also a video of them collecting the corpse of people from our embassy, and I believe the ambassador himself too. But we can't see the world's #1 most wanted person. Oh, just a little bit too strange. All right. I'm going to take this message here. 1 second, Dave.
Yeah, didn't they dump his body in the ocean? You know, never could find the bones. Can't do no DNA test on you, right? That was him. All right, take your word for it. Right? What kind of shit is that? Come on now. What's Joe Biden say? Come on, man.
Yep. Yep, because guess what? You want to, the best way to ensure that we'll still be able to have that card play back to is what? To ensure that he's a martyr. Yeah, and so, yeah. You martyr him, you raise up, what came right after that? I believe it was ISIS. How many years after bin Laden's death did it take until ISIS came around? So, yeah, recyclable CIA assets left and right. Dave, you still with me, man? All right, here. So yeah, but going back into the board turning here. So, like I was saying about crisis determines ultimately where we're headed, as far as at least for this counts for the U.S. So, if that determines where we're headed, we are at a choosing point right now whether we're going to be allowing ourselves to go into this controlled collapse, or if we're going to go out kicking and screaming the entire way and possibly try and make something different. But regardless of how you look at it, the U.S. will not look the same after your life that you had in the 2000 teens and the 2000s. You can kiss that goodbye. Ultimately, things will get better or worse. I guess that all depends on what side you're batting for. But I just, yeah, that's where we're running into with the fourth turning right now. And while we're making out to believe that it's going to be a battle on who's controlling world powers, I think ultimately, it's Levinskyism. Look over at Russia, look over at China, Iran, Saudi Arabia, all while simply there you have all the elites come together for their great reset. I mean, they're from all over the world. So,
Oh yeah.
we can look over at one nation, paint them as the bad guy. You have several fronts now: Russia, possibly China. I wanted to get to that in one moment here, but ultimately, people from Russia, these people from China. It's amazing how many times Germany has had their fingers in things with Klaus Schwab now entering the fold, about talking about how you will own nothing and you will be happy. And so you look at when our economy collapses, yeah, you won't really have too much. Good, Dave. I've been talking too much.
Sorry, I had to run in and grab a cup of coffee. You got me all fired up. I wanted to keep going. I just want to interject something about ISIS, right? ISIS. Oh my God, ISIS, this evil entity. Once again, that's the CIA's tenet. Create the crisis, offer the solution. You know what ISIS, you know how ISIS was formed? So the first thing we did when Paul Brenner, the guy we sent to Iraq, the first thing he did is disband the Iraqi military and the police department. So instill chaos and have all these people resentful. They aren't getting a paycheck anymore. And what did we do? We left the arms depot open so these pissed off people could go grab weapons. That's what created the quote unquote insurgency. Then when we pulled out of Iraq, we left all of our vehicles there with the keys in them and all of our weapons there. What could go wrong? So all those people now have badass weapons. That created ISIS.
So wait, hold on here. Now that happened in what year?
I can't remember. It was when we
can't remember because it sounds. I'm not sure if you're describing to me 2014 or if you're describing 2021 in August.
14.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It just sounded an awful lot like our exit out of Afghanistan.
There you go. Once again, not by accident, we did the same thing. We left all of our weapons there. Oh, what could go wrong? The official military explanation of why we left our weapons there is, it would cost too much to ship them home. We could ship them there, but we can't bring them back. And so, but riddle me this. if it's too expensive to bring them home, then why don't you just put them all in one giant pile and drop a massive bomb on them so nobody else can use them? Oh, because that wouldn't help us in the next crisis.
Yep. But on top of that, we made them a little more stronger for the next one. A, our weapons, but B, I mean, they could not fight in the night. Now they got our night vision. So,
right.
I mean, we're teeing ourselves up to just have, 20, 40 years, we'll be back over there.
Oh, yeah, of course. We'll cycle back around. And I don't know if anybody's seen this documentary called Beyond Treason, but it shows how the Gulf War syndrome that destroyed 200,000 of our soldiers was created. And it goes into our use of depleted uranium munitions in Iraq. And what they show is this horrific level of birth deformities ever since. A huge percentage of kids birthed in Iraq are born with gnarly birth defects. I saw this one poor child. It looked like an amoeba. There was no discernible limbs or anything, but there were 2 eyes on top of this thing that looked like a jellyfish. It's so sad. Horrible. Horrific. And of course, we did that in Vietnam with Agent Orange. And still in Cambodia, their leading industry is the creation of artificial limbs because of us.
Yeah, that kind of, I guess, would circle back over. I'm not sure if this was planned or not. I'm not being sarcastic when I say this. I genuinely don't know if this was planned or not. But going this back to things like artificial limbs and things like that, and big need for that. You look at Elon Musk talking about things like Neuralink and the metaverse, but I mean, particularly Neuralink, how he's talking about, we'll be able to go and have people who are paralyzed be able to walk and move again and use limbs. I mean, maybe those are too spanned apart to be connected, but it just makes you scratch your head.
I don't think they're connected. I've been looking into Neuralink a lot, and there are some amazing things. Like I have chronic back pain. It could eliminate my chronic back pain by simply turning off the nerve impulse that sends the pain signal to my brain.
Who controls the on and off?
And it can give sight to the blind, right? Like amazing stuff. People with MS could walk. Like, wow, I thought it was just to have a computer in your brain.
Yeah, so what you're telling me is they've spent generation upon generation creating a problem, and now they're saying, hey, look at the solution.
There you go. Well, and also, if you get this thing implanted in your brain, you think they don't control the mainframe? Come on.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you think you can just be like, oh, well, that's okay. I'll just turn my phone off. That way they can't hear me. That way they can't see me or listen on me. They can do that whenever they want. You don't really have as much control you think. What do you think is going to happen as far as things with your brain? I mean, think about a cancel culture taken out to an absolute extreme.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up, because whether your phone's on or not, it can be used to spy on you, to capture audio in the room, like Alexa, and your smart TV that can be used for video and audio surveillance. Right? The NSA can spy on you through your smart TV. Thank you, Edward Snowden, for breaking that information and letting us all know, right? Oh, and now look at him. Oh, that guy could never, he's been on the run for how many years? Julian Assange should be a hero of the highest degree. But oh no, he exposed the war crimes of the military state. And so he's pariah number one, and countless politicians have actually condoned the assassination of the guy. Are you kidding me? And now he's losing his mind in solitary confinement, which is torture.
Yeah. And Edward Snowden, where's he at again?
I don't even remember. He was in Russia, then somewhere else. I think he quit announcing where he is because he's probably afraid.
Last I had heard it was Russia.
Me too.
But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that had more to do with it. Or it's already let out.
Yeah, and how ironic is that somebody who breaks a scandal in the U.S. has to flee to Russia to not get assassinated? Wow. But yes, Russia is the big bad enemy, right? My whole life, dude, I've been told that Russia is the big bad enemy. They're going to nuke us. Like heavy metal was created in my early years because there was basically no hope of a future. It was a very nihilistic outlook, right? And that turned out to all be bullshit created by the CIA